Right, here we go. Awesome. Welcome to the Champions Way podcast. I have a good friend here, Anthony Harris. Anthony, how's it going, man?
Oh, beautiful. I cannot complain.
Super excited to have you on here. Anthony, he's the co-founder and executive director of the B.O.S.S initiative, the next chapter. It is a mission to help formerly incarcerated individuals successfully walk the path from prison prosperity. That's awesome stuff, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know you and I met back when I had my gym in New Hampshire back there, and it's been a path for you since that point. Walk us through, man. Like, what's gotten you to this point in life and this chapter in your life?
Well, prior to me meeting you, I was actually a drug dealer, to put it plainly. But I never considered myself a drug dealer, even though I was selling drugs. It's just in my life, how I was raised, I was taught that selling drugs is a viable way to get out
Mhm.
of the inner city, aka the hood. And
Yeah.
so I actually made it and accomplished all my goals that I set for myself. And I'm sitting in this lake house where all of these things, boats and jet skis and the nice cars, and I still on the inside felt horrible. So I started to kayak the perimeter of Lake Horace, the lake that I was living in Ware, New Hampshire, asking God, why do I feel like this? I thought that accomplishing all of these things was the definition of success, to have the house and the cars and the nice
Mhm.
things. And I thought that finally I would be happy, and I wasn't. And I began to ask God, to get me out of the game. I didn't get into drug dealing so I could be the biggest drug gangster kingpin. I just didn't want to be broke anymore and live
Mhm.
in impoverished circumstances, under impoverished circumstances. And so I didn't realize it was going to be like this. So I just don't want it anymore. And I gave up everything that I accumulated with drugs. I didn't get caught. I just, in my heart, didn't feel right. So I gave it all up and started from the bottom of it again to transition and do what I know that God put me on this earth to do. And so that's what I did. And the journey has been crazy hard, but when I tell you it's so worth it, I started to invest in what I call sweat equity. And
Yeah.
it's, in my opinion, the best equity you can ever invest in. It may not pay off in a day, in a week, it may not pay off in a year, but trust me when I tell you, eventually it pays off big. And so I got with my queen, Shaquanda Allen, who's the owner of Roots Natural Hair Shop, and I just dove headfirst into business, legal business. And at the time, I told my queen I didn't want that anymore, and she told me, I never wanted you selling drugs. I just didn't want to tell you to stop, and you think I'm one of them women trying to control and change you. So I'll
Yeah.
hold us down until you get it right. And I fell in love with her all over again after that. And so
Awesome.
what I did was, my queen is a phenomenal hairstylist, and she has a phenomenal heart, a heart of diamonds. So she was working for somebody. So what I did is, I have a small business degree. I joined the Small Business Association of New Hampshire. They gave me a business mentor, and I started to build my queen's company without her knowledge. But then I got to a certain point where I had to tell her, because they tell you, oh, whatever you're passionate about, that's what you should formulate your business on. Because now, every day, you're not working anymore, you're doing something you love. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm passionate about a lot of things. And so I realized that my passion is with business itself. I love
Yeah.
bringing a thought to fruition. It's like, oh, the beautiful feeling in the world.
Such a good
So
feeling.
I finally, I told my queen, because we got to the point where they're asking me questions about hair, and I don't know anything about hair. So I finally tell my queen, and we started building our business, Roots Natural Hair Shop, and November 5th, 2018, we finally got all of our paperwork, and we brought Roots Natural Hair Shop to fruition. And from there, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to do anything negative and dark anymore. So I just prayed on it, and I became a pro reporter, and I covered the 2020 presidential election out here in New
I remember you telling me
Hampshire.
about that.
And then from there, I had a dream. I woke up around like 3 in the morning, and I had all these words in my head. So I pulled out my MacBook and I started typing. 2 hours later, as I'm reading it, I'm like, yes, this is my life goal. This is what my purpose, why God put me on the earth. And it was pretty much the infrastructure of Boss Initiative, the next chapter. I said, I went through so many things. I did 5 years in the Florida State Penitentiary, and I,
Mm,
I used my time wisely. I started reading a lot of nonfiction books and the business for dummies. And
yeah.
I got into business school, and then I created this business plan, this 32-page, very detailed and intricate business plan. And I said to myself then, when I get out, I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm just going to do my business. And I was so optimistic and ready for it. And then I got out, and everywhere I went, do you have any felonies? Denied. And it was like to get apartment, to get business license, everything had me checking this box. And I'm not a liar, so I checked yes, and they would deny me. There were some interviews that I would have, and they would love me in person, and we're in there. It's like we were best friends forever. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, I gotta ask, do you have any felonies?" As soon as I say yes, they're all the body language changes. Oh, we're gonna put it on file, and of course they never call again. So I end up going back to the streets. And then I made it, and then I quit. I quit again. So I said, you know what? It is so hard for a person when they come out of prison or jail
Hmm.
to rehabilitate their lives, because it's like they teach society that if this person's been to jail, they're a criminal forever. So
Yeah.
I took it upon myself, to create the space in a nonprofit that will actually help those coming out that want to transition to truly successfully transition and become part of society the legal way. And
That's awesome.
now it's here. We're
Yeah.
like 2 months out from our grand opening.
That's so exciting, man. So if you don't mind me asking, like because I'm curious, like what is it? And I don't know if you can talk on this at all or not, but what do you guys do to help facilitate that process? Because what you guys are doing is, I think, is a huge, and you've probably been told this multiple times because it's such a huge thing. Because you're right, like people look at like somebody who's been to jail and they're like, oh, shame, 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 and
Yep.
it at the end of the day, we're just humans, and many times, many of us just make mistakes, and it's so hard to move past something like that, like you experienced, So enough of my rant, but I want to hear from you, man. What is it that you
Yeah.
guys, if you
So
don't again.
when it went with me, what I started doing is, after I wrote pretty much the infrastructure, I literally just, every day I get up, I pray, I would walk outside, and every person I seen, I would just talk to them about my vision and ask them if they would like to join it. And from me covering the 2020 presidential election, I met my network grew a little bit, and I met some
Mhm.
highly respected and considered powerful people, and I started talking to them about my vision and my dream, and they embraced it. And then I talked to Carol from Manchester Inklink. She's the founder and executive director, and she sent out one of her reporters, and I pretty much told, for the first time, my whole story, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. I was like, you know what? My queen's been telling me for years that I should talk to somebody because my story was so powerful, but I didn't notice how powerful my story is. You know, when you're on the inside,
Yeah,
it's
you're
like,
just
yeah,
living it.
yeah, yeah. And I wouldn't. I'm like, I'm not telling anybody anything. I told you, and you keep it that way. You know, I
Don't
wasn't
tell
used to
soul.
talking about and my feelings. And then as a man, we're not taught to speak on our emotions. It's like
No,
we fall
frowned
down,
upon.
and it's like prone into us, whether it's intentional or not. It's prone into us from kids. If you have a daughter and your daughter falls, it's like, oh, you okay, babe? And then, but if you have a son and your son falls, like, get up, brush it off, man up,
Yeah.
men don't cry. And I started to think about that heavy, and I'm like, yes, we do cry. We have a heart, we have feelings also. And by us not crying, it like is a weight on our hearts. And then now
Hmm.
there's a trauma there that we're ignoring. And then something else happens, and then we ignore it. And then you have a person that's going through the same thing, and then y'all meet and just a wrong eye look, or you step on the shoes and they're like, oh, he beat that guy because he stepped on the shoes. No, because he had traumas that he didn't process.
Right.
And so I said, you know what, this would be the best way that I can help my people. When I say my people, I'm not talking about black. I'm talking about all my people that are coming out of the prisons. I know how you feel. Like, I've been in that situation, and God helped me to overcome it. So if he gave me the knowledge, how is it power if I'm not sharing it? How do I say I
Yeah.
love if I don't share the gifts that God gave me to come up out
Hmm.
of these situations with others? So I decided to, dedicate my life to it.
That's awesome, man. And I think a lot of it's you hit on the point with the men and emotions, because I think that I've talked to guys too, and I'm sure you have, where a lot of guys be like, "Oh, I'm not emotional," but in the same breath, they'll say they have an anger problem, right? And what
Yeah.
a lot of people don't, yeah, a lot of people don't realize is actually the way anxiety manifests itself in women is different than how it manifests itself in men. In men, anxiety manifests itself as anger, because anger is
Yep.
rewarded in for men in today's society, right? A boy would rather be thrown out of a class for throwing his chair than crying.
Cry. Yep.
You know what I mean? And
It's and it's
it's
crazy. It's
hmm
crazy, but it's when you look at how society puts it out there, the view and the perspective they put this out, it makes you feel less. It makes you feel
yeah.
insignificant and weak to be vulnerable. And what helped me a lot with it is because I never had therapy before. Because in my neighborhood is we're taught that if you got a therapist, you're crazy, and
Yeah.
you don't want to
You
be
crazy
labeled
person.
crazy. So we have all these unprocessed traumas stacked on top of each other. And
Hmm.
still to this day, I haven't had therapy. I talk to a lot of therapists now, and they're like, they're amazed that I never went through any therapy. But I feel I did go through therapy, just not orthodox therapy. It was very
Right.
unorthodox. And I listened to this one Netflix special. Her name is Brene Brown.
Hmm.
Wow, it's called The Call to Courage, and she's the first one that taught me that vulnerability is actually courageousness,
Yes.
because it takes you to be courageous to put yourself out there. But if you
Hmm.
never be courageously vulnerable to put yourself out there, then nobody will ever know you.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing it. What I started doing is I would practice on our clients, our Roots Natural Hair Shop, our clients. When they come in, I'll tell like a little insignificant story to myself about myself. And they'll get all excited and be like, wow. And I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't even look at it like it was that big. But then
No.
when you hear what they get from it, it's like, you know what? Maybe my story is worth putting out there.
Yeah.
And so after like 2 years of my queen on my back about it, and then me practicing with our Roots clientele, I finally just called Carol up and I put my whole story out there for everybody to read.
It's
And
awesome.
from that, The president of Southern New Hampshire University, he read it, went to the director of the honors program in SNU, which is Dr. Chris Matthews, and said, if you don't know this guy in this organization, please find him. We want to support it. And they were like one of our first biggest supporters. And they've been with us ever since and helping us bringing this what we feel is one of the most important things to the reform system to
Yeah.
fruition. And so now we're here.
That's so awesome, man. Yeah, vulnerability. It's cool you were able to recognize that. And I think I heard a saying. It was therapists are like archaeologists and coaches are like architects. Whereas therapy goes like digs deep, whereas a
Hmm.
coach will build you up. And it's almost like you're able to go down, you're able to recognize some of your stuff, and then from that you're actually almost your own personal coach in a way to build yourself up through the vulnerability. Because on the flip side, like people think lack of vulnerability is strength and powerful, but there's actually an inherent weakness in that because then you don't have the creative freedom and the courage that you should to go after the things you want like you're doing right now. And it is true. Vulnerability is it's super powerful too. That's amazing. You're
Oh
able to come across it on
man,
your own.
I don't think I've ever been as vulnerable as I am today. Now I don't hold back.
Yeah.
If I feel something, I express it. It's like it helped me in every area of my life. Like me and my queen, I feel we have the best relationship in the world. I mean, I've never talked so much about my feelings, but in doing so, it helped my queen open up even more because now
Hmm.
she's not thinking, oh, he might take this wrong, and so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say this, I'm gonna hold this. And I feel like in relationships, that's what a lot of women do because the man is not being vulnerable to talk about their feelings. They're keeping it to
Hmm.
themselves because they think that their queen is gonna think they're weak. And so they hold it, but then that makes your queen not want to tell you as many things. And it's not that she's being deceitful and lying to you. It's because she loves you and she doesn't want to upset the flow of the relationship, so she doesn't talk about it with you.
Right.
But in her doing that, it starts wearing and tearing on her. So, and then the relationship eventually falls apart. And so it's like being vulnerable helped me in so many different ways. And so that now I preach vulnerability. I
That's
tell all
awesome.
my men, hey, you can think you're being strong by not being vulnerable, but you're actually not only weakening yourself, you're weakening all the relationships that you have around you.
Hmm. Yeah, it's 100% true. And I think too is that you're able to find your true self, and then you're able to surround your people with the right people that should be around you. I think that's the most powerful
Yes.
part. Because when you're actually you, and whether because there's and there will still always be to an extent. I think for a larger majority because I've heard stories of guys opening up to their significant others and they just leave them. They change their perception on it, but that's not that person's that that's the spot that's the other significant other's problem. It's not if you're going to be vulnerable, you should. And then if it ends, it ends. It sucks,
Mm-hmm.
horribly sucks. But you have to find that core you, and then the right people will fall in place. Otherwise, you're gonna be living a lie your entire life.
Exactly. So I had uh a person that I mentor say that to me, and I told them, listen, with everything that you do, there comes a woe. So being vulnerable to especially a significant other or a friend, there's a woe with that. But even that woe is beautiful. You know why? Because if they do decide to leave, if they do decide to break the friendship, then guess what? They were never your friend. So it actually is a help because it helped you prune. It's just like the flowers, roses.
Yeah.
You got to prune them for them to keep blossoming beautifully. So you got to prune yourself. So by being vulnerable, it helps you to prune yourself so you can blossom into the most beautiful rose ever. And it's a good thing that they're gone because if they had this perception of you, that's not you. Maybe later on in life, when you had these beautiful blessings and they actually came, now they're detrimental to your success. Now they can kill your success and destroy your success. So therefore, them leaving now is actually beautiful. Don't look at it as you lost them. You didn't lose them. You dropped dead weight. So now you can fly, because you can never fly with someone on your wings. So therefore, you drop the dead weight and you're able to move. Your heart may hurt a little bit, but you'll get over that. And now you can actually rise. So there is no downside to vulnerability, because if someone leaves out of your life, they wasn't supposed to be there anyway, because that wasn't the real you. They were either in love with or infatuated or in lust with somebody that you were portraying, the facade that you were putting up versus the truth. So when you put the truth out there and someone doesn't correlate with that truth, then they're not supposed to be in your life anyway. Celebrate that.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I think that the other piece of it too is we go back to the anxiety and anger piece. And when you're more yourself, you're not going to have that anxiety bottled up. You're not going to have that depression that's pulling you down. And you're not, as a subsequent result, you're not going to be as angry as an individual. You know what I mean?
It helped me love life. When I was on the other side, I never smiled and laughed as much. I woke up disgruntled, like, what am I going to go through today? Now it's like, man, like even this morning, I get up, I wake up, open my eyes like 6 something in the morning. I'm like, yes, man, you ready for the day? And then she's looking at me and gets her excited. And now we're up, make the bed, we're showered, we're dressed, and now we're like ready. We're like ready for any and everything. It's like life just is so much better on this side. And to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to talk about my past. And when I talk about it, it doesn't put me there anymore. Now I stand on top of it. That's why I can talk about being molested as a child with a smile on my face, because it doesn't bother me anymore. And someone else's opinion of that doesn't bother me, because what you say to me, if it's negative, does that make it true about me? No, you don't even know me, but I know me. So sorry you feel that way, but blessings and prosperity to you. You know, I love all people, but some people I gotta love from a distance.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure, dude.
and you can't be in you're not allowed in my universe, because my universe is a positive universe, and I can't allow you to bring that negativity in here. So therefore, I put you over here, and even in business wise, if it's somebody I just have to do business with, then I know where to put them. I know where to open up and where I got to close up, because they have their own agenda. If I don't have to do business with you, then I just don't. I don't care if you're a billionaire, and there's some billionaires that I've had meetings with, and they wanted to give me a lot of money. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I gave up all of this money and all of these things because it was wrong. I'm not going to get on this side and accept money and things just because, and knowing that you're crooked. So when I've turned down a lot of money and things of that sort, because you want to do crooked things. You don't really want to help the community or the people. These things are for yourself. I'm not here for self. This world, in my opinion, because I am a Christian, I believe in God and the Bible. So this world is not my home. This world is a testing ground to see if my energy can spend eternity with God. So we are all energy. The flesh is the flesh. The flesh turns cold once the energy leaves. But energy can't die. If you unplug your computer, the computer doesn't have any power. Does that mean the energy died? No. If you blow up the power plant, is the energy dead? No. It's just the source. You just was disconnected from the source. So therefore, I just make sure I be the most positive energy as I can possibly be. So when people come to me, whoever they've been around, at least they can see that we still exist. We are here, and it is possible. I liken it to, I call the truth is light. So if you walk in truth, there's no way that darkness can ever overpower you. Why? Because you can get as dark can possibly get, and get an eeny peeny pin light, and that pin light will light up the whole of the darkness. So when people come closer to me, if they're dark, I don't become dark. My light starts uncovering and moving their darkness. And they do one or two things. They either come closer and convert into the light, or they run away from me and throw shade on me to cover up their darkness. Either way, I'm good. I would rather it be the former than the latter. But if
Right.
it is the latter, like I said earlier, you wasn't supposed to be in my life. It's a blessing. I don't even have to go through the nonsense you would have put me through.
Yeah. What, because when it comes to helping the prisoners, get back in the path of prosperity with what you guys are doing, what is it that, how are you guys helping them? Like, what's the plan to help them? And
So, we're providing transitional housing. 12 months is our program. We're providing transitional housing. I have Sharon Harris, who's the founder and executive director of Partner Success. She goes around the world and she helps people in underserved communities get into prestigious colleges. One of her success stories is she found a guy who was like 19 on Mass Ave in Boston, homeless, on drugs. She coached him off of drugs, got him into school, and 2 years ago he graduated from Harvard Law. And
wow,
she's going to take care of our educational side. So, and then we have Dr. Chris Matthews, um, who's the founder and executive director of Project AIM, where they go inside prisons and you can join Project AIM while incarcerated, and you can get your bachelor's degree from Southern New Hampshire University through what they call the badge program. So
wow,
he's combined with B.O.S.S Initiative, and we're going to be inside the prisons together so they could join B.O.S.S and AIM and come out into the B.O.S.S Initiative program, finish their bachelor's, and then we also have a lot of um, living, working wage jobs. So that's willing to hire them as they come through the B.O.S.S program. All the red tape is cut off. And
cool.
we made history with this one. We have Dr. Amy Fleischer, who's an internationally renowned psychiatrist. And she's bringing a couple of her cronies with her, and they're going to be giving my boss man an hour a month pro bono therapy.
That's awesome.
So from jobs to health and wellness, we have workout coaches. Hopefully, you be one of those.
I appreciate
And
that, man.
we have education, we have workforce, health and wellness, mental wellness, and hopefully all of those combined will be able to show them that you are worth it. God put you here for a reason, and that reason isn't to be in prison. Now, just because you made a mistake, yes, that is your past, but your past does not define who you are. And we're
Right,
here to show you that it doesn't. And if you're willing to help yourself, then we are willing to help you, because you only can help those who want to help themselves. So
right.
once they want to help themselves, we're here for you all day long. And hopefully this will eradicate the recidivism rate, which is now in Hillsborough County, where I'm at, 47.5% recidivate within
Those
the
are the
first
people
three
that
years.
leave jail and then go back in, right?
Yep.
Wow.
30.3 of that 47.5% recidivate within the first year, first 12 months. So it's like, and around the country, it's like 70 something percent. It's crazy, ridiculous. So that shows us that there is no rehabilitation in jail or prison, because if there was, the percentage of recidivism would not be so high. And the reentry programs that are here, not to talk bad on anybody, but if you were
Hmm.
working that good, why is the recidivism rate still so high when we
Right.
have so many thousands and thousands and thousands of reentry programs? So I feel like that's why I don't call us a reentry program. You know, it's
That's
like
a,
this
that's,
is
you're right.
this is the next chapter. It's B.O.S.S Initiative, beating the odds and striving for success. What odds are we beating? That recidivism rate.
That's
and
awesome.
we're striving for success, and this is the next chapter of our lives. So we leave the past behind. We don't forget about the past, because
Hmm.
it's I love to talk about where I came from. It helps me to realize, look at all that you overcame, look at what
Hmm.
you had to persevere through. So what right now would you consider pressure? Look at what that was: pressure. Going through being sexually abused was pressure. You overcame that. You're still here. People shooting at you, that was pressure. You overcame it. You're still here. So when I look at now, it's like, okay, we got some bills to pay. We got this. That's not pressure, and
Yeah,
it helps me to realize how powerful I am and the influence I have, and that it doesn't matter what's going on in my life, I can make it better as long as God gives me life.
that's awesome, man. Yeah, it is. It's really, it's such a perspective. And some of the guys I coach, it is that I reference that. You go like, look at all of the shit that you have been through. What we're
Hmm.
about to go through is pennies in compared to what you've already gone through.
Exactly.
And when you that little reframe, because you're right, some people have been through so much shit, and you have two choices: either let it pull you down, or learn from it and move on.
See, I listen to a lot of Dr. Eric Thomas, and there's one thing he said to me. Well, he said it to everybody, but I always say to me, I always personalize it. One thing he said, he's like, man, I know how you feel. So sometimes you get knocked down. So if you get knocked down, you know, and then I come back 5 years later, you still knocked down. 20 years later, you're still knocked down. I can't get with that. Why? Because we get knocked down, but we got to get back up. Even the Bible
Yeah.
references a saint is just a sinner who got knocked down but got back up. So it lets us, even the Bible lets us know we gonna get knocked down. And then I like to reference to my people all the time. Like, listen, you keep telling me how this person came against you, this person came against you, right? Christ was perfect. He did no wrongs, only healed people, only spread truth and love and light,
Mhm.
and they hung him on a cross and killed him. So you being who you are, who did all of these wrongs, what make you think the world is going to do you better? They're
Right.
not. So it's not
Right.
about looking at who's coming against you. It's about what are you going to do to respond versus react.
Hmm.
A wise man thinks 7 times before he speaks. And I added to that, said, okay, so then how much more should you think before you respond? So if we respond the correct way, then we don't have to worry about anything else. As long as we respond the correct way. We don't have to worry about what they're doing. Just set
Hmm.
your goals for your life.
Yep.
Execute the goals for your life. And you don't have to worry about anybody else. You don't have to worry about taking that personal. Don't take things what people do to you personal, because most people are dealing with a lot of traumas that haven't been processed. So
Right.
they're just taking it out on you. The same
Yeah.
way when you were dealing with them without processing them, you were taking them out on other people. So
Yeah.
don't take it personal. Take it in stride for a grain of salt and continue to execute the goals that you set for your life to bring them to fruition.
Yeah. I think it's just bringing empathy in the world in general, because I think it's something that we do. We hold such harsh judgment. And you're right. You have somebody who, even just the symbolism of itself is, it doesn't matter how perfect you are. I mean, even you watch just pro athletes. Look at pro athletes. They'll hit a game winning shot in football, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have one great week, the next week you have a bad week, and the media thinks you should lose your job. You know, like
Yep.
there's you can't get caught up in that, and it goes back to kind of the vulnerability piece we're talking about, is when you're able to, when when you're so caught up in everything, you'll you're not able to have that vulnerability piece to it. You end up taking things personally, and a lot of people will use it as fuel, as motivation, but at the end of the day, it's not the right kind. And oh man, there was something I was going to say too with the oh, it'll come back to me, but yeah, it's you're spot on with all that stuff, man.
This is what I do. This is what I do every day. I wake up, and, even earlier, right before I got on, I just had a guy. It's a good friend of mine. He's been there for a while, and I've been mentoring him for a while now. And he's finally starting to see the light. He's finally starting to see the light, and he's like, man, all this. So my street name is Doughboy, and he's like, man, though, I seen you like have it all. Like you had everything that everybody hustling wants, and everybody's trying to get it from you, and including myself was asking you to be my plug. That's what they call a person that's giving them the large amount. And I seen you give everything up when you were in your prime to you're sleeping in the parks, and everybody is now talking like, he had it, now he don't got it. But none of us knew what you were really doing. And to see
Mhm.
what you're doing now and to see all these, like, man, I'm sorry I didn't believe you earlier. You made me a believer. I never was one to pick on you. I still talk to you. But when I talked to you, I was trying to give you encouragement to get in the game. And you kept saying no, but you wouldn't tell me why. And now I see why. And he's like, man, I want the same thing for my life. And so, yeah, I've been working with him for the past like 2 months now, and he's getting it. And this is like, there's no drug, there's nothing that gives you this feeling. It's like I'm literally helping lives. I got one helped the I helped him get a lawyer, and they overturned his case, so he gets no jail time. He was in the gang called Folks. Now he's out. It's 3 years now. I've been mentoring him. Almost 4 years. He's out. He's been with his queen for a couple of years. They just had a baby. He lives in
Mhm.
Maine now. He works. He just got his car, and his life is just up, up, up. And he calls me all the time, like, man, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I was like, no. If it wasn't for you,
Yep.
you did this, not me. You did
Yep.
it. Only
Yep.
thing I did was help to clear your brain and prepare a stage for you. But I can't get on that stage and perform for you. You got to do that.
Yep.
So without
You got
you
to do
doing what you did and putting it in your head and consistently living that, you wouldn't be here. I can't take credit where credit's not mine. And they come over, they stay some weekends. My queen does his hair. He's like my little brother now,
That's
and
awesome.
it's like, man, I love helping people. And I just what I had to learn was that I can't help the world as much as I want to, because that's a big thing. Is once you transition, now you want everybody to feel it. So I
Right.
start saying yes to every single thing because I'm looking at everything like an opportunity. I'm trying to help every single person that say they want help. And then I started to lose focus on me again
Hmm.
because I'm helping people that don't want to, really, they don't want help. They want you to give it to them. And this is not something you could give to someone. You
Right.
can show them the way, and then they have to take the path,
Right.
and I had to learn how to differentiate those who really want the help. You can't say need, because a lot of people need it, but just because they
Right.
need it does not mean they're going to put in the sweat equity to overcome it. So you
Exactly.
have to, as sad as it may sound, everybody that come to you, you can't help them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna have to say no.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to show you that they want this, because once I put my time into you, I don't go halfway. I go all the way. So now I'm putting all of this time, and I liken it to the analogy of, if both of us have wells, and I constantly take out of my well to put in your well, and you never reciprocate, my
Yep.
well eventually runs dry, but
Hmm.
your well is still full. But eventually your well's gonna run dry because you're not putting into your own well either. So now we're both stuck here. And so I can't allow my well to run dry. I gotta let God is the one filling it, overflowing it. So I gotta put it into people's well that is actually gonna continue to maintain that well, so that they can eventually start getting their own water.
Yeah. You do a real good job of using a lot of analogies in all of your stories. I don't know if you know that or not.
Thank you.
Is that's just a natural thing for you?
Yeah, it really is. So growing up, I had a different life growing up. I was born addicted to crack cocaine. When I was 5, my mom's lost me due to that addiction. And
Wow.
then my uncle adopted me, saying he didn't want me to get lost to the system. So for 3.5 years, he physically, sexually, mentally, all the abuses you can think of, this man did to me. And
Jeez.
I became an angry child. So I wouldn't talk to anyone. So what I would do is I would run to the library and I would read. And
Mm.
my granddad started that because my granddad would never hit us. He would never put his hands on you. What he did is you got to sit in that corner, well, stand in that corner, and he gives you New York Times, the Lakeland Gazette, and you got to read and give him an essay on any. It don't matter. He'll take an essay from the funnies, but it has to be a real essay
Wow.
because if it's not, he'll crumble it up right in front of you and say, "Nope, you're better than that. Go do another one." And so
Wow.
I used to hate it. I hated it. Now I'm so grateful because now I'm one of the greatest researchers I know. When I dive deep when I research, I make sure I find the truth and get it from multiple sources to make
Yeah.
sure
Yeah. We were
that
talking about
what
that the other
I'm
night.
going to self-apply to my life is facts.
Yeah.
And so he started me reading, and so what I would do is when I get abused, I run to the library and I read these books. And it was the first time I ever traveled because I'm reading these books they're in Africa, they're all over the world. And when I'm reading this book, I am there. Like, you can tell me I didn't go visit that place, and to the point where I would fall asleep reading in the rafters and they wouldn't know. And after a while, they found out. And they would, when it's time to close, they're walking around, Anthony, we know you're in here. And so I've been reading for so long, and then I started studying millionaires and billionaires. And like, why are they that and I'm not? What are they doing that I'm not? And Warren Buffett is one of my favorite guys. And I read the Warren Buffett way, his autobiography. And he says he reads the first 6 hours of his day, he reads. And it's like, why are you reading 6 hours? And he's like, and what are you reading? And he, at the time, he was reading Forbes 1962 financial report. And he was like, well, why are you reading for 6 hours every day this financial report? And he says, because no business was more successful than Forbes in 1962. So I'm reading it. And in reading that, he found a little niche. So he bought Coca-Cola. And with what he read, he applied it to him buying Coca-Cola. And he raised the price 1 cent. Coca-Cola sells like 108 million 8-ounce bottles of Coke every single day.
Hmm.
So he raised it 1 penny, which now generates him millions more every single day. And that's from him reading Ford's financial report. Now, of course, it's a lot more intricate than just raising 1 penny. But if he didn't read that, he wouldn't have been able to grab that concept and bring it and use it in today. So I do the same thing. I feel like reading is everything because first and foremost, there was, I don't know if you heard of Willie Lynch, was one of the ruthless enslaved masters of the day. And
Okay.
so when Harriet Tubman started coming and now all the enslaved are running, no one ran from his camp, from his plantation. So you had a lot of these enslaved masters were saying, asking him, why don't any of yours run? Can you tell us? So he wrote this book and it's called How to Keep a Slave, the 33 Letters of Willie Lynch. And one of the things that he says in there is, uh, do not let them read because reading, well, they will find out the truth. So you want to put the truth, put it in a book so that they won't be able to read it. And so that's when I read that book, I dove headfirst into books ever since. I mean, if you look behind, I got like a library in here. And then I got another book. I got other bookshelves out there with a lot of books, and most of my books are nonfiction, but I do read fiction also because you
Yeah.
got to balance the logical and creative side. I'm a man that loves to know. I like to know because I like to learn because I like to teach. And you can't
Hmm.
teach if you don't have knowledge. If you don't have the
Exactly.
wisdom and understanding of that knowledge, then you can't teach it.
Yeah.
So I like to grasp as much knowledge as possible. And also when I love to learn, so when someone's teaching me, if they're talking on a subject that I know about, that's when I'm the quietest. Because now I get to see if they're liars, if they're trying to deceive me, or if they're actually going to give me the truth.
Hmm. Yeah, that's super smart. I think it's, I've always, you bring up how you've done such a good job of taking what happened to you and leveraging it. And it's so powerful because you look at a lot of like the people that have accomplished some of the most amazing things in the entire world. Because I remember like when I was younger, I'd hear, they have the Sports Center clips of like the hardships a lot of professional athletes go through. And
Hmm.
there's always that moment where they flip the switch and they use what happened to them as leverage to get to where they are. They use the pain as a purpose. And it's almost like there's a correlation of like the worst shit you've been through when you're younger can actually translate to the greatest success, the greater the level of success as an adult. And to be honest, man, like just hearing you talk and the trajectory you're on, like that's, I see that happening for you because everything you're saying is you're able, what you went through was, I'm not telling you you don't already know, but like you wouldn't wish it on anybody, but you
No.
were able to take what,
Not
you were
at
able to
all.
take what happened and use it in such a powerful way that you're gonna change a lot of lives, man. And to
Oh,
like,
thank you. I appreciate you, King. I definitely appreciate
yeah,
you,
man,
King. It's more confirmation, man. I take that all
it's so
day.
and it's just a decision. That's all it is. And a lot of people don't understand. It's literally just a decision to make that. And for some people, they get so caught up, they almost identify with problems. And it's
Yep.
like to make that decision means they have to find a new identity, and to find a new identity is scary. That's why a lot of people will go back to their own problems.
Yep. Exactly. And I just tell, man, listen, you can't put change on your brain and the whole process. You can't. You just today, and then for this hour, do this hour, and take it hour by hour by hour.
Hmm.
Control your 24 blocks.
Yeah.
Take it hour by hour. Then you wake up the next day, take it hour by hour. Because if you try to put it in a hole, it's going to be overwhelming. And then it's harder to see the end. I can see the end of the day. That's a lot easier for me to try to see the end of 10 years, the end of 5 years. It's so much harder. So don't look at it. Don't look at the big picture. You plan the big picture, but then you
Hmm.
focus on the day.
I think it's a Tony Robbins quote. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it's him. He says, "People overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10."
Woo,
It's fire, dude. Every like
woo.
I
I
heard
love it.
that.
I'm gonna take that, put that in my repertoire.
Do it, do it. Yeah, I think you just you have to quote him on it, otherwise you'll get in trouble. But um, it's man, when did I hear it? I think I heard it. It was close to the time I was selling my gym. That was like early 2020 before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I went to a conference and he spoke to it. And I think that's the first time I heard it. And I was like, that is one of the most profound things because at the time I was so caught up in like the next thing, the next
The
thing, the
next
next
thing.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it gets you to stop and be like, look back 10 years of where you were versus how you are. And you're like, holy shit.
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? And then it's like, then you play the long game and you patient and you stay consistent with what you have.
Exactly. And that's what it's about. It's easy. I'm not gonna lie. It's easier said than done. It really, really,
Yeah.
really is easier said than done. But it's doable. It's an obtainable goal.
Yeah.
And and if you just you just have to want better for your life. You just have to want better for your life. And as long as you want better for your life, and you just take that leap, you got to take it's going to take the leap of faith. It's going to take courage. It's going to take
Hmm.
strength. But once you do it, I'm telling you from lived experience,
Yeah.
it's worth it. And yeah, you don't accomplish the goal right away, but inside it feels like you did. It really does. You when you write a goal and start with small ones. As soon as I get up, make my bed. I've been to boot camp before, and they used to always, you gotta get up, do 250 push-ups, and have your bed made with what they call the military line, like the cloth
Hmm. Yep.
set diagonal on the corner. And I used to hate it, like, yo, let's make the bed for it. We could just go do this, this, this. And so I heard this motivational speaker. He was in the Navy. I can't remember his name. It was on YouTube, and he says, I tell everyone, just get up and make your bed. Let that be just your first
Yeah.
goal.
It was like a
And then
graduation
say,
announcement, wasn't
because
it?
why? When you make your bed and you made it a goal, it's an accomplishment. Now your brain doesn't doesn't correlate big and small accomplishment. It just knows I accomplished the goal and you feel it. So I'm like, you know what? Let me do it. And I did it. I wrote it down as a goal and did it the next day and was like, whew, I felt good. I'm like, so it's like you started your day off with already accomplishment already. You already got an accomplishment. Let's keep that momentum going. And it made sense. And then another thing that I tell people, a goal that's not written down is not a goal. It is a thought. And
Hmm.
the average human has over 1 million thoughts a day. So how are you going to remember that thought after 7 million, 7 days, or 14 days, 14 million thoughts? You're not. So if
Yeah.
you want it, if it's a goal of yours, write it down. Every single goal, and know that every goal that you write down is going to take 100 mini goals to accomplish this one. So make sure it's obtainable and it's not too far out of your reach. So you write down these goals, and then what it does is it helps you to realize life isn't mundane. Even though it may seem you're doing the same thing over and over, once you look at that paper, every time you accomplish a goal, you cross it off, you can keep track of your progress. Like, yeah, I'm getting there. I ain't there yet, but I'm getting there. And
Yeah.
I never really had anybody to motivate me the way I do other people. I
Yeah.
never had that growing up. God was the one that I talked to and motivate, and then so it was like more of self-motivation. And, and,
Hmm.
and these are the things that I've adapted through life to get there. Now I have a lot of people around me that give me inspiration and I'm able to talk to, so I don't have to do it all by myself anymore. But a lot of
Yeah.
people, when you're in this certain level, you're not courageous enough to be vulnerable around everyone. So take these steps. This will help you motivate yourself and keep you motivated so you can see your progress and see that you're not wasting your time or your life. You're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's spot on, man. This has been fun. We could probably keep chatting for another hour.
Oh man, I'm trying to tell you, this is what I do, man. I love it. I love it, man. I can go
Same.
on forever about it because it's such a topic. It's not to take from women at all whatsoever, because not gonna lie to you, for the longest time, and sometimes still now, it was always about the man. Women weren't really, it's get in the kitchen, cook, clean, have the babies,
Right.
and women are like the strongest human beings on this planet. Yeah, we may be born strong physically, but they're born strong mentally, which is greater strength than physical strength,
Yeah.
and it's just now that we have the women movement. They're not all the way equal in the law, but we're getting there because they are
Right.
humans. They are powerful beings and they deserve that. It's just since then there's no space really created for men to do what we're doing today,
Right.
to talk about our feelings, that we don't have to worry about being judged like, oh, he ain't a real man because look at him crying. And it's like, dang, I'm not allowed to cry. And then
Yeah.
for the women out there that's listening to this, I need you to understand. You can look up the statistic. It's statistically proven that when a man cries in front of his queen, she loses respect for him, whether she
Yeah.
knows it or not. She loses it because women look for security, and if you're crying, you feel like that's you're too insecure. So then
Right.
they take. So it's like you want us to open up, and don't judge us when we open up to you.
Right.
Actually, listen to what we're saying, so that you will be part of the inspiration and help versus part of the one that makes us close back up and say, "See, that's why we don't open up."
Yeah. I think we're in a unique time with men's mental and emotional health where I think there's almost this redefinition of masculinity in a sense to where it's like they have this like toxic version of it, which I hate that name of it because it's all it is. It's just abusive dudes who just they're still processing their own stuff, but it's like you have to give space because that that release of emotion gives strength to whatever that next move is that the guy is trying
Yes,
to do. You know what I mean? And it's you're spot on. It is that's that statistic is there, and it sucks, but I think it's probably going to be another 5 or 10 years till that swings to where it should, to where it's not only is it accepted, but it's encouraged to an extent to when it needs to happen. And that loss of respect doesn't exist, and we're going to have this redefinition, the shift of what masculinity is that you can, because you have like almost, and I think we're kind of getting out of the other end of it, which was like the polar opposite, whereas you had like overly emotional men, and
yeah,
that's actually not good because men need purpose, right? And that that overcorrected itself to where it is, but it's got to, there's that fine line in that middle,
yes.
you know?
So before we get out of here, I graduated actually in June from the New Leadership Council, and um, we did capstones. And one of our beautiful kings, he did a capstone, and his thing is he wants to create this space. So me and him are working. His name is Kevin, and me and him are working now to create that space for men. So
It's all,
that this is not nothing in here is going to be recorded. Everything in here stays right in here unless
hmm.
you want us to take it out. And it has to be verbally said,
Yes.
and agreed upon, And so to create that space, because I feel like we'll have a lot more men if we had that space doing the right things,
Yeah.
and having someone that they can call, and they know sometimes maybe you just need to vent. Maybe you got all the answers, but you just need to vent this off.
Yeah.
And because holding it in is going to create some type of animosity towards whatever situation put it there.
Yep.
And because we're men, just like you said, we lash out in anger, and so let's and when once we finish this, I would love for you to come into this space, and then the
Oh,
ones
dude, I
that
appreciate
have
it.
stand on top of the traumas now, um, to come onto your podcast and let you make it a thing of it. Make a thing of it.
Yeah.
And the ones that's comfortable enough to have the conversation on a recorded podcast, let's bring them on, man, and let's get more men
Yeah.
out here being men again, without all this toxicity.
Absolutely, dude. I'm all game. That's amazing. That's fantastic. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Hey, man,
You're humbling me, man.
Sam, I appreciate what you're doing,
Likewise.
I appreciate your drive. And no matter what happened to you, you still make it happen. And Corona affected a lot of us the same way, and a lot of us in different ways. And you got the people who oh, Corona made me fail, and this happened. Well, it made a lot of people fail, and it made a lot of people sad. A lot of people died. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to let Corona just kill your business and not do anything else? And you didn't. You figured out a way. And whether it was complaints before, in the end, you focused, you planned out, and you executed. And now look, you have a podcast. You're still doing the nutrition. You got the men coming together. Man, hats off to you. I commend you, man. You're an inspiration also.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Hey, listen, when both men are making waves, that's where things can, the bigger the wave we can make, the bigger the movement it's going to be.
Amen. Let's go.
Cool. All right, man. Well, this is awesome. We have to do it again.
Definitely. Have a good one, man. God bless you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Cool.
Peace.
All right. That was it, dude. Oh, okay.